Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Swallowed Star 2 Land of Origin Part 33 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. Among them, some elites could perform instantaneous movement under the suppression of ordinary large cities. But at this moment, with two armies clashing and the spatial turbulence intensified manyfold, still able to move through the void at such a time, he must have mastered several moves of primal chaos realm techniques in the void to an unimaginably high level. At least several moves in the void have been mastered at the primal chaos realm. No wonder he can act as Luo, his protector. With him leading the escape, those below the primal chaos realm, even within a large army formation, pose no threat to them, master and servant. The many eternal true gods of the Heart Shadow sect felt a chill in their hearts. He's trying to destroy the Dark Prison World Array. Stop him, they cried. The Dark Prison World Array, tasked with resisting the suppressive might of over 100 formations from Huyang City, was already under severe strain. It barely had any power left to deal with Luo Feng, and his reduction in self-protection capabilities meant it could very easily be breached by Luo Feng and his servants. His servant moves through the void space too quickly, we can't stop him. The Great Destruction Ultimate Formation ceased its attack and joined forces with the Dark Prison World Array to counter Luo He. For a time, both great arrays, while resisting the numerous formations of Huyang City, also suppressed Luo Feng, neither able to target the Marquis of Zhujiang Legion. The battleships of the Flame-Wind Ancient Country clashed fiercely, over 100 super-large mechanical treasures coordinating together, battling the Marquis of Zhujiang Legion. A figure of crimson flames watched the battle from outside the city. Such trash, restrained by Yuewu and Luo He, the two most crucial arrays. Marquis Liu Yin shook his head, knowing that with the loss of these two super-large arrays, the Heart Shadow sect had lost more than half of its strength. The army formation led by Yuewu was like a single entity. Whereas the battleships, the Heart Devil Kite, the Divine General of Heart Shadow, and the 100 super-large mechanical treasures seemed formidable, they were truly disorganized. They would be defeated one by the army formation led by Yuewu. Yana, make your move, Marquis Liu Yin commanded from afar. Yes, father. Inside the Flame-Wind Ancient Country battleship, there were many ordinary disciples, among them a black-armored general sent by Marquis Liu Yin to supervise. Master of the Heart Shadow sect, by order of the Marquis, we are here to assist you in breaking the formation, the black-armored general announced, and suddenly, a legion appeared out of thin air. Leading this legion was a young man in a blood-colored robe. Young Master Yang? The sect leader of the Heart Shadow instantly rejoiced. Having been under Marquis Liu Yin for so long, he obviously knew that the strongest under Marquis Liu Yin was this Liu Yin Yang. Marquis Liu Yin was harsh in raising his children and generously invested resources in them. Liu Yinyang was Marquis Liu Yin's most outstanding child. Moreover, Marquis Liu Yin had spared no expense to have Liu Yinyang trained under an ancient godly king from the Snow Realm, making him a direct disciple of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm. I am here to help you destroy the Marquis of Zhujiang Legion, Liu Yinyang declared, taking immediate command of the entire Royal Guard Legion, maneuvering a humanoid mechanical treasure as white as snow. Whoosh! The super-large snow-white humanoid mechanical treasure naturally possessed an endless beauty, but when it emerged from the battleship into the void space, the Marquis of Zhujiang Legion was greatly alarmed. Is this, the mechanical treasure, envoy of the Snow Realm, from under the command of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm? Yuewu exclaimed in surprise upon seeing this. Technically, the Heart Devil Kite and the Divine General of Heart Shadow from the Heart Shadow sect, also specially crafted by a godly king suitable for their own disciples, were nearly as exquisite as the envoy of the Snow Realm. However, the old ancestor of the Heart Shadow sect had long died. So, they were merely managing with some disciples. Managing to drive the Heart Devil Kite and the Divine General of Heart Shadow was already quite an achievement. Whereas the ancestral god of the Snow Realm was an ancient existence known throughout the Land of Origin, with countless desiring to be his disciples. Those qualified to maneuver the envoy of the Snow Realm had been selected, whether the leader or the 36 assisting eternal true gods and 49,000 true gods of void space, all were selected through screenings. Ultimately, they could perfectly unleash the power of the envoy of the Snow Realm. Whoosh, the power unleashed by the envoy of the Snow Realm was stronger than both the Heart Devil Kite and the Divine General of Heart Shadow combined. Wherever it went, mechanical treasures collapsed, and the eternal true gods of void space, and true gods inside responsible for maneuvering them all died, without exception. Brother Luo-He, quickly come and stop this envoy of the Snow Realm. Yuewu knew it was bad. He could entangle with the Heart Devil Kite and the Divine General of Heart Shadow with his formation, but he couldn't stop this envoy of the Snow Realm. Whoosh! Moved by Morosa's swift travel, Luo Feng and Morosa reached near the envoy of the Snow Realm almost in the blink of an eye. Leave it to me. Luo Feng also observed the envoy of the Snow Realm in front of him, whose entire body had skin that was pale and stunningly beautiful, bearing a resemblance to the true form of the sector beast. He resembles my true form quite a bit, Morosa transmitted his thoughts, but the essence is different. My essence is the path of destruction. The essence of this envoy of the Snow Realm is the great Tao of life. Luo-He. The envoy of the Snow Realm looked at Luo Feng, his eyes gleaming with golden light, cold and impassive. Yes, its essence is the great Tao of life, Luo Feng observed the envoy of the Snow Realm. The ancestral god of the Snow Realm was indeed an ancient godly king who walked the path of the great Tao of life. However, in terms of slaughter, the ancestral god of the Snow Realm was among the top 10 most notorious old demons in the land of origin, having slain countless creatures. A pure white light surged from the surface of the envoy of the Snow Realm, naturally resisting the power of the formation, as it stared at Luo Feng. In Liu Yinyan's view, if the envoy of the Snow Realm could entangle Luo Feng, it served its purpose. The great Tao of life, yet such slaughter? Luo Feng watched as light glowed on the surface of the envoy of the Snow Realm. Luo Feng, having significant expertise in the great Tao of life and the path of destruction, saw a super-large mechanical treasure containing the mysteries of the great Tao of life. Merely viewing the flowing pattern on its surface was enough to stir him. This slight stirring was like a beacon of light in the darkness, quickly integrating Luo Feng's numerous insights gathered over a long period. Suddenly, Luo Feng blinked. Is this the law of primal chaos, which confused Luo Feng for a long time? But when his accumulation was sufficient, a slight opportunity acted as a trigger, breaking through the bottleneck and revealing everything clearly. Luo Feng was filled with joy, delicately experiencing the completely comprehended law of primal chaos. Luo-He, what are you looking at? Why haven't you made your move? The envoy of the Snow Realm was already prepared and was surprised that the renowned Lord Luo-He merely stared at it without taking action. Luo Feng looked at the envoy of the Snow Realm before him, his heart brimming with joy. This envoy of the Snow Realm truly lives up to its renowned reputation as a mechanical treasure of the Snow Realm lineage. Impressive, Luo Feng praised. Although he wasn't fond of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, that ancient godly king, he had to admit that the ancestral god of the Snow Realm had extremely deep attainments in the great Tao of life. According to the records of his master, the mountain-sitting guest, in terms of strength, the ancestral god of the Snow Realm was roughly equal to his master. But because his cultivation was of the great Tao of life, his ability to protect himself was far stronger. Endless years have passed, and many ancient godly kings have perished. However, despite his numerous sins and many enemies, the ancestral god of the Snow Realm managed to live freely until today, which speaks volumes of his abilities. Different primeval Taos have different strengths, and the great Tao of life indeed possesses the strongest capability for survival. Luo Feng had seen the complete great Tao of life origin and understood the power of this path. Even just grasping a branch of it could dominate the land of origin. Without taking action, you are instead praising. Are you scared? Liu Yinyang, who was commanding the envoy of the Snow Realm, had no patience to wait. I want to see how strong the top eternal true gods really are. Whoosh! In an instant, the envoy of the Snow Realm pounced, an array of light flashed, engulfing Luo Feng. Normally, such an attack would be enough to erode away the body of an eternal true god and cut off all of its life force. However, Luo Feng simply slashed casually with his blade, and the blade light flowed like water, perfectly blocking the pounce of the envoy of the Snow Realm and slicing it to retreat backward in flight. While the envoy of the Snow Realm was flying backward from the momentum, it suddenly changed direction and increased in speed. Whoosh, whoosh, Whoosh! Turning into a blur of afterimages, it continued to make consecutive pounce attacks. Luo Feng stood firm on the spot, defensively impeccable. All retreat, back to the city owner's mansion. Suddenly, an order rang out in Luo Feng's ears. The entire military formation completely transformed into a group of unpredictable flowing water, heading straight for the city owner's mansion. With the help of over 100 major formations within Huyang City, and with Luo Feng blocking the envoy of the Snow Realm, it only took a few moments for the entire formation to completely retreat back to the city owner's mansion. Brother Luo He, it's the Marquis's order to withdraw the troops. Yue Wu informed through a transmission. Luo Feng understood. He had just begun to comprehend the primal chaos laws and was at his weakest as a being in the primal chaos realm. At this moment, his small universe had just begun expanding, his true god's heart had not yet transformed, his godly body and divine power had not yet undergone transformation, and he had not had enough time to grow. He hadn't had the chance to study the heritage of the primal chaos realm. Exposing his mastery of the primal chaos laws now would be the most foolish act. The Marquis Liu Yin would definitely not mind crushing Luo Feng to death. Just like Shui Yun before, in a moment of life and death, his bloodline transformed, and he grasped control over the primal chaos laws. But apart from his moves being somewhat mysterious, there was no other improvement, and he was directly slain by Luo Feng. Only when my perfect godly body of the primal chaos layer reaches its limit can I really stand my ground within the primal chaos realm, Luo Feng thought to himself. Based on what he understood. After breaking through to the primal chaos realm with an unlimited godly body, one would still need to cultivate the secret technique for a considerable period to improve all aspects without weakness. Only then could one reach the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm, equivalent to the Marquis of Zhujiang. As a perfect divine body, if I can grow to the limit, I should be close to the Marquis of Zhujiang, but still not on par with Marquis Liu Yin. As for now, daring to confront the Marquis Liu Yin would be courting death. Within the city owner's mansion, the divine power incarnation of the Marquis of Zhujiang appeared and held a banquet to entertain the core members of his army. Over 100 eternal true gods gathered within the grand hall, taking their seats in order. Luo Feng and Yue Wu were seated at the first positions to the left and right below the seat of the Marquis of Zhujiang. In this skirmish, all of you have worked hard, the Marquis of Zhujiang said, but with the appearance of the envoy of the Snow Realm, even if we could barely win this battle, I'm afraid only 2 or 3/10 of the eternal true gods would survive. The eternal true gods present all agreed. Actually, they had all clearly understood the situation just now. With the envoy of the Snow Realm tying up Luo Feng, there was a chance that the army of the Marquis of Zhujiang could have been defeated in the ongoing battle. Even if they won, it would only be a Pyrrhic victory. A narrow victory would only lead to Marquis Liu Yin sending another army again. The Marquis of Zhujiang looked at his subordinates, but you are all the military force I have. There's no need for us to waste our strength against them. Luo Feng agreed. Marquis Liu Yin didn't care about the loss of life from the Heart Shadow sect, but the Marquis of Zhujiang cherished his army. The 3,000 plus eternal true gods were nearly all the military force the Marquis of Zhujiang had. A war of attrition? He certainly didn't want that. To win, it must be an overwhelming victory, the Marquis of Zhujiang told them. I don't need a victory with countless deaths. Thank you, Marquis. Many of the eternal true gods were extremely moved. Luo Feng, Yue Wu, and a very few others were confident they could survive the battles within the military formations. But the other eternal true gods could die at any moment. In the face of the envoy of the Snow Realm, they would perish with a single encounter. The Marquis of Zhujiang cared about their lives and didn't want them to be wasted, naturally moving these eternal true gods. Such a primal chaos overlord was indeed worth following. This ceasefire will last for quite a while, the Marquis of Zhujiang said. I will find a way to call for more reinforcements. Looking at his subordinates, including the summoned master and servant of Luo He, Yue Wu, Yong Hu, and others, the Marquis of Zhujiang was quite troubled. I have already invited such powerful eternal true gods, who else can I invite? Moreover, Marquis Liu Yin was actually able to invite an envoy of the Snow Realm, representing the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, Willing to assist him, Marquis Zhujiang was very aware of the significance of the appearance of an envoy of the Snow Realm. An envoy of the Snow Realm, as the name suggests, represents the ancestral god of the Snow Realm to a certain extent. Without the permission of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, that envoy would not possibly participate in battle. With one envoy of the Snow Realm, if Marquis Liu Yin is willing to pay a certain price, he may possibly invite 2, 3, or even more envoys. Marquis Zhujiang knew this. There are a total of 36 envoys of the Snow Realm. They are powerful forces mobilized within the territories under the command of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm. As for the more than 10 primal chaos overlords under his command, they joined because they valued the significant enhancement the ancestral god of the Snow Realm could provide to their survival abilities. Without sufficient reason, these beings of the primal chaos realm couldn't be mobilized. I had long heard that Marquis Liu Yin has an extremely good relationship with the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, to the point of even having his children become disciples of the ancestral god. Marquis Zhujiang shook his head. But I never imagined that the ancestral god would go so far as to help him like this. Many ancient existences would not easily intervene in the wars of other nations. But the ancestral god of the Snow Realm is notoriously violent and reckless, riddled with monstrous sins. It is not surprising he would do such a thing. Faced with an at the eternal level, I'm afraid I can't win. Marquis Zhujiang thought to himself, I must enter the fray personally. The conflict at the level of the primal chaos realm is much more brutal. Relying solely on myself isn't enough, I must seek help, Marquis Zhujiang determined in his heart. The cost of asking for help from someone of the primal chaos realm was great, but at this moment, he could no longer care about that. The reluctance to easily escalate wars is due to this reason. Once escalated, the weaker side will seek help, easily leading to multiple great battles involving those of the primal chaos realm. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In the region of the primordial cosmos, Luofeng's small universe. Rumble tilde tilde tilde. In the central region of the small universe, spanning 100 billion light-years in diameter, there was a special space of cosmic origin that was now collapsing, with the emergence of chaotic power inside and the substantial manifestation of the laws of primal chaos. This place was as if it were a space within the primal chaos layer. I originally constructed the small universe using the concept of the beginning of unity. What follows is natural evolution. Luofeng's divine power incarnation stood in this space of cosmic origin, watching the surging chaotic power around him. My framework is quite perfect indeed, eventually naturally evolving into a primal chaos primeval space. The evolution of a small universe starts with its formation and framework. After that, it grows naturally. If the initial framework is somewhat defective, it'll cause the small universe to be somewhat smaller in scale. If the framework has severe defects, it might even stop evolving at a certain layer. Such cases, though rare, do occur. Those who have stepped on the law lineage to become a true god rarely reach this stage. As for those on the path of bloodline, their small universe is determined by their bloodline. Although their upper limit is not as high as that of the law lineage, they would not have fatal flaws. What's going on? This is inside Luofeng's small universe, where countless human beings lived. Some of the universe masters and true gods became aware of changes in the small universe. The rampant demon god arrived at the original border of the small universe, only to see an endless expansion of primal chaos forming outside its edges. Primal chaos currents have appeared outside, identical to the primal chaos currents of the universe ocean. The rampant demon god exclaimed in amazement, "Is the Lord of the Galaxy's small universe expanding again?" At this moment, many true gods had also arrived outside the galaxy universe. The small universe of the ancestral god of the galaxy is expanding. A diameter of 100 billion light-years, it's growing again. The Lord of the Galaxy is becoming more and more fearsome. As the powerhouses of the human race and others from the universe ocean looked on in astonishment, the ancestral god of the galaxy, Luofeng, had long been invincible in the entire primordial cosmos region. In the face of yet another enhancement of this invincible existence, the various clans' powerhouses naturally accepted it. Luofeng, how big do you think your small universe will become this time? At this moment, Luofeng's family had arrived outside the small universe in their boat, watching its entire transformation. Shushin, Luo Ping, Luo Hai, his younger brother Luo Hua, his father Luo Honghua, and his mother Gongxin Lan were all watching the changes. It's estimated to reach 1 trillion light years, Luo Feng said. Last time, it reached 100 billion light years, and then you went to brave through reincarnations, Shushin inquired. How significant is this breakthrough for you? Very significant. Luo Feng smiled and nodded. Only by becoming a being of the primal chaos realm can one be considered to have entered the upper echelon of the land of origin. Since the number of ancient godly kings is too small, and one godly king can establish a nation, many key affairs in the land of origin are handled by beings of the primal chaos realm. Even in the two great ancient countries, beings of the primal chaos realm are quite important. In the imperial lineages like Emperor Chu's lineage of the flame-wind ancient country, beings of the primal chaos realm can barely become guest elders. With the pride of the imperial clan, being willing to call someone a guest elder indicates the status of beings of the primal chaos realm. At least, I'm not cannon fodder anymore, Luo Feng thought silently. To the higher-ups, an eternal true god was truly nothing but cannon fodder. Under observation by the various powerhouses of the universe ocean, including his teacher, the primal chaos city lord, and Zhenyan, as well as the Thunder Lord and others, Luo Feng's small universe expanded at a terrifying speed. After 5 years had passed, the expansion of the small universe finally stopped. By then, it had already reached a full 1 trillion light years in diameter. Such an enormous small universe, even when compared to the primordial cosmos, wasn't far off. Huyang City, the city lord's mansion, allocated a separate compound covering tens of thousands of kilometers for Luo Feng to reside in. The cultivation chamber, within the Star Tower. Luo Feng sat cross-legged, wholeheartedly sensing his true god's heart. As his miniature universe expanded to a diameter of trillions of light years, the true god's heart connected to it grew increasingly strong and resilient, with a steady flow of primal chaos divine power pouring into the true god's heart. True god's heart, primal chaos evolution, Luo Feng thought, and primal chaos divine power surged within the true god's heart, gradually forming a space that expanded and eventually solidified into a defined primal chaotic space. For a cultivator of the law lineage's primal chaos realm, transforming a primal chaotic space was a very easy feat. Luo Feng's own primal chaotic space was broader and more stable than that of others at the same level of the primal chaos realm. Boom tilde tilde tilde, a massive amount of primal chaos divine power flooded into the godly body, causing Luo Feng's godly body to begin its metamorphosis. For my godly body to grow to its limit, it seems it will take a very long time. Luo Feng felt as if his godly body was a dried-up desert, instantly absorbing any amount of primal chaos divine power that came its way. Thankfully, my miniature universe has a very high efficiency in consuming energy and converting it into primal chaos divine power, Luo Feng mused silently. His miniature universe was the perfect form among miniature universes at his level, with an inherently high absorption and conversion rate. Furthermore, time flowed 10,081 times faster in his distant homeland compared to the land of origin, so the divine power he transformed every moment was naturally immense. If it were an ordinary primal chaos realm cultivator absorbing this divine power in less than a day in the land of origin, their godly body could grow to its limit. But for Luo Feng's perfect divine body of the primal chaos realm, this influx of divine power caused not the slightest ripple, being silently absorbed without a trace. Divine power has become 100 times more pure. Luo Feng could feel the changes within. With 100-fold purification of divine power and great increases in physical size, coupled with an overall elevation in realm, he was indeed far stronger than he had been during his eternal true god phase. I wonder, after my godly body reaches its limit, how big the gap will be between me and Marquis Liu Yin, Luo Feng contemplated. As for the perfect divine body of the primal chaos realm, there was no record of it in the land of origin, and the strength it could attain at its limit was something Luo Feng could only guess at for now. On the surface, among the various primal chaos realm cultivators in the Shi Kingdom, there are nearly 10 who possess unlimited godly bodies. Marquis Liu Yin does not possess an unlimited godly body, yet his strength is ranked within the top 5. First, focus on cultivating secret techniques, Luo Feng decided as he felt the slow growth of his godly body, then cast aside all distractions to begin studying the secret techniques that could be cultivated at his primal chaos realm level. For normal primal chaos realm cultivators, the first secret techniques studied are always those that save one's life. Why would a godly king condescend to acknowledge the primal chaos realm? Because even a godly king cannot guarantee a complete kill of a primal chaos realm cultivator. The foremost life-saving secret technique of the primal chaos realm, reincarnation secret technique, Luo Feng studied in detail. The reincarnation secret technique uses a secret technique to protect a sliver of the true spirit for reincarnation. Upon death, a sliver of the true spirit will follow the supreme rules and naturally undergo incarnation through reincarnation. By relying on the reincarnation secret technique, there is a hope to maintain memories during reincarnation. According to the records of powerful beings who have reincarnated throughout history, whether reincarnation can retain memories or remain conscious depends on one's spiritual will. A godly king's will can remain fully conscious. It is already conscious in the fetal stage and possesses complete memory. Therefore, after birth, it can quickly cultivate to recover its original strength. The primal chaos pinnacle will can generally retain the complete memory within a sliver of the true spirit, but when it becomes conscious is uncertain. It may awaken during adolescence, or possibly only upon becoming a true god of void space or even an eternal true god, before gaining access to all memories. As for a weaker spiritual will, even the memories will be incomplete, and the chances of awakening are so low as to be negligible, with no awakening to past life memories in a lifetime. This also signifies the complete annihilation of the previous life. Just a hint of consciousness in the primal chaos realm is enough for reincarnation. And with many life-saving secret techniques, even godly kings cannot ensure a clean kill of a primal chaos realm cultivator. Luo Feng was well aware of this. The not-so-powerful school of the Duan Dong River lineage in the land of origin had the Undying River secret technique. Some more formidable and extensive lineages have even more life-saving secret techniques. As long as one does not die instantly and can reincarnate immediately, after reincarnation, the connections to past causes are severed, becoming a new creature. From the outside, it is impossible to discern the former identity. A godly king will also establish his own domain and have many concerns, and will not easily create such a formidable enemy. This is also why godly kings show a modicum of respect to primal chaos realm cultivators. In the land of origin, occasionally there arises a genius that swiftly climbs the ranks, even some who become newly minted godly kings, Luo Feng thought, but in reality, these rising existences may well be some old geezer who has reincarnated. For example, his master, the mountain-sitting guest, had already reincarnated. Like the godly king ancestor who established the Heart Shadow sect, or the third-generation ancestor of the Duan Dong River lineage, all publicly known information has them as having fallen. But if they didn't die completely and a sliver of strength quietly reincarnated, keeping their identity hidden, who would know? When cornered with no way out by terrifying enemies, one can reincarnate to change identity, completely severing ties with the past. Because of the reincarnation secret technique, nearly all ancient godly kings have unlimited godly bodies, Luo Feng thought. By relying on reincarnation, one can compensate for the shortcomings of their godly body. Of course, reincarnation has some flaws, such as uncontrollable reincarnation identities and extreme vulnerability during the fetal stage. An embryo, with an extremely weak soul, even if it comprehends the law of primal chaos, the strength it can exert is far less than a mere sliver of a divine power incarnation of a primal chaos realm cultivator. At this stage, it is very easy to die. Thus, those who dare to reincarnate proactively, usually reach the godly king tier in terms of their realm. A godly king, at the very least, commands one branch of the origin Great Tao. With a single thought, they can form complete universal operational rules and can open up a universe of their own. Merely by relying on the complete universal operational rules, they can make the supreme laws retreat. Their survival ability and strength far surpass those of the reincarnated ones from the primal chaos realm, and their risk of reincarnation is also extremely low. I hope I never have to use this reincarnation secret technique, Luo Feng mused, as he certainly did not wish to be reincarnated. Once reincarnated, his miniature universe would perish, and countless humans within it, except for an extremely small number who could be protected and sent to the primordial ancestors' miniature universe, over 99% would be annihilated. Moreover, his divine power incarnation would also be annihilated, unable to contact his family. Nor could he observe the great Tao of life origin. The soul enslavement on Morosa would also dissipate, and Morosa would become a free sector beast. Only in a desperate situation would he choose to reincarnate. The reincarnation secret technique is not difficult, Luo Feng found, having learned the technique after spending 3 days on it. This secret technique, whose creator is unknown, has a very low level of difficulty to practice and can be learned by almost every being in the primal chaos realm. Any force with even a slight background has records of this secret technique. Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram, World-Breaking 9 Blades, Duan Mia, Donghua, Lai Yuan Technique. Let's start comprehending these one by one. Luo Feng calmed his mind and began researching these secret techniques. To the south of Yu Kingdom, there is a vast lake with an island in the center. On the island stands a city, larger in scale than even Huyang City. Whoosh! The divine power incarnation of the Marquis of Zhujiang appeared in the sky, overlooking the simple, majestic city. This city, composed by moving a great number of mountains, was bustling and prosperous, filled with countless citizens. The Marquis of Zhujiang flew into the city, invisible to the ordinary guards, and silently reached a cave mansion within. "Brother Yang Yu," the Marquis of Zhujiang said with a slight bow. The door to the cave house opened, and an old servant spoke, "Marquis of Zhujiang, please." The Marquis of Zhujiang immediately entered and, inside an attic of the cave mansion, a four-armed man was sitting there carving a city model, his carving blade leaving secret patterns onto the model. As he carved the model, identical secret patterns appeared out of thin air on the city walls of the large Lake Island city. The Marquis of Zhujiang smiled as he watched from the side. After a long time, the four-armed man put down the carving knife and looked towards the Marquis of Zhujiang. "What's the matter?" Brother Yang Yu's skill in array formations is simply astonishing. Within the entire land of origin, there are very few in the primal chaos realm who can match you, the Marquis of Zhujiang flattered. "It's nothing," the four-armed man replied, a hint of a smile on his face. "Just say what you are here for." "Brother Yang Yu is aware that my fief borders Marquis Liu Yin's," the Marquis of Zhujiang said, shaking his head. "Marquis Liu Yin is too domineering. He has now sent troops to snatch my entire Zhujiang primal chaos prefecture. I'm no match for him, so I had to seek help." "That's quite pitiful," the four-armed man nodded. "Brother Yang Yu, if you help me, you only need to speak up, and Marquis Liu Yin will surely retreat obediently," the Marquis of Zhujiang suggested. "Although he's fierce and domineering, he wouldn't dare to offend you." The four-armed man shook his head. "If I intervene, but Marquis Liu Yin doesn't give me face, then wouldn't that be awkward?" "He wouldn't dare," the Marquis of Zhujiang insisted. "Brother Yang Yu, you are a direct disciple of the Emperor, he wouldn't dare to disrespect you." Emperor is a special title only granted to the supreme rulers of past generations of the Flame-Wind ancient country. Every emperor possesses unfathomably powerful strength, and the Flame-Wind ancient country's reputation has been personally forged by these emperors over generations. Apart from the Thunder ancient country, no other power would dare to provoke an emperor. Even the pinnacle sector beast of the Qianmu kingdom would be eradicated if it challenged an emperor. A direct disciple of an emperor, nostalgia flickered in the four-armed man's eyes. Being taken as a direct disciple by an emperor in the Flame-Wind ancient country was his most dazzling moment. Back then, he was ambitious and even envisioned himself becoming a godly king one day. But as endless eons passed, he became more insignificant. Ultimately, he chose to leave the Flame-Wind ancient country and establish a city on this secluded lake, living there alone. Among the direct disciples, I'm the weakest. At the peak of the primal chaos realm, the four-armed man said with self-mockery, "I'm not even confident I can defeat Marquis Liu Yin head-on. Zhujiang, I can't help you." In his agitation, the Marquis of Zhujiang pleaded, "Brother Yang Yu, are you so concerned about a mere Marquis Liu Yin? Without a fight, how can you know if you can't defeat him? Without a fight, how can you become stronger?" The four-armed man's expression darkened. "Leave now." The Marquis of Zhujiang felt the world around him shift, and when his vision cleared, he found himself already back in the Zhujiang Primal Chaos Prefecture. "With such a high-level mastery of arrays, I don't believe Marquis Liu Yin can defeat you. It's a pity, you're just too timid. Everyone who comes to ask for your help, you refuse to leave the city, the Marquis of Zhujiang lamented. Watching the city model in front of him, the four-armed man picked up the carving knife and continued his work. When I become a godly king, that will be the time for my return, Yang Yu thought, looking at the city which was his most dedicated work. When this large city was carved to perfection, that would be the moment of his ascension as a godly king. Having become a primal chaos realm cultivator, Luo Feng only left a divine power incarnation outside while his true body was engaged in dedicated cultivation within the Star Tower. Reaching my current realm, I have come to realize the shortcomings of the two lineages I've inherited, Luo Feng sighed softly. My mentor, the mountain-sitting guest, did not bestow upon me a godly king-level inheritance. Clearly, my mentor did not think I was suited to follow the path of artifact refining. The Duandong River lineage, however, my third-generation ancestor did leave behind 3 godly king-level inheritances, Duan Mie, Donghua, and Undying River, but all these were paths that the ancestor himself had tread. What I need is a godly king-level inheritance in the law of life and the path of destruction. For an eternal true God, the pursuit is to master the laws of primal chaos, Luo Feng thought, so choosing any few inheritances would be very suitable for oneself. But for beings in the primal chaos realm, they have already mastered the law of primal chaos, and what they need next is to comprehend the origin Great Tao. Luo Feng sensed the heavens and the earth. He could glimpse the many origin Great Taos faintly hidden behind the chaos. These origin Great Taos, combined, form the supreme rules. The supreme rules dictate the operations of the entire world. A suitable godly king-level inheritance, I don't have a single one, Luo Feng had no choice. If it were another top eternal true god, faced with the recruitment of the monarch of Yu country, they probably would have submitted to apprenticeship long ago. With the monarch of Yu country's status, he could grant his disciple a suitable godly king-level inheritance. My godly king-level inheritance can only rely on Emperor Chu's lineage of the Flame-Wind ancient country for now, Luo Feng considered. Now that I have become a primal chaos realm cultivator, I wonder whether Emperor Chu Yu has made a breakthrough. He needs to break through before he can recruit me as a guest elder. Luo Feng calmed his mind and refrained from overthinking. Without a suitable godly king-level inheritance, I can only begin with some suitable inheritances for primal chaos realm cultivators for the time being. The primal chaos great strength diagram demands increasingly higher artifact refining skills as it progresses, and the resources needed for the 4th refinement of my perfect divine body will also be incredibly vast. I'm too poor, I simply can't afford the cultivation. Luo Feng had already half given up on this technique. On the one hand, the upper limit of this inheritance is not high. After all, it's only a technique at the level of the primal chaos realm. On the other hand, the demands for artifact refining skills are too high. At the stage of an eternal true god, with my talent and guidance from Shang Qianyang to resolve my confusions, I was still able to achieve 3 body refinements. But at the stage of the primal chaos realm, the artifact refining skills undergo a qualitative change, and I don't plan to spend too much effort on it. Another key point is that the resource requirements are far too great. The resources I struggle to earn should be spent on Emperor Chu's lineage of the Flame-Wind ancient country's inheritances instead, as good steel should be used on the edge of the knife. The world-breaking 9 blades is worth practicing for a longer period, as this blade technique is also in the direction of the path of destruction. It's a pity that it's only a technique at the primal chaos realm level. Luo Feng put some effort into studying it. The world-breaking 9 blades in the primal chaos realm consist only of 3 blades. They are Primal Chaos Blade, Heaven and Earth Blade, and World-Breaking Blade. The final style, World-Breaking Blade, seeks to break through all spatial layers, utterly shattering the entire world, creating a crack in the braided cage. Unfortunately, the world-breaking blade can only break through most of the spatial layers, and still can't break the cage. The entire technique, world-breaking 9 blades, can only represent the creator's pursuit. Even for a godly king, breaking the braided cage is not an easy task. Luo Feng continued his meticulous research. Having reached the primal chaos realm, even the space of inheritance from the Duandong River lineage is of little help. This inheritance space primarily aims to cultivate disciples into eternal true gods. It would already be a miracle to cultivate a primal chaos realm cultivator. As for going even higher, The space of inheritance only offers some information and guidelines. Inside the city owner's mansion, in the villa where Luo Feng resided, Morosa was eating roasted meat and looking at Mu Qingyang not far away. He couldn't help but curse. How can you be so foolish? Not even the basic laws do you comprehend yet? Compared to your master, your talent is lacking by who knows how many times. I dare not compare myself to my master, Mu Qingyang could not help but say. Actually, I'm only one step away from the time law now, and within these more than 30 epochs of time, nearly grasping the 10 fundamental laws. I think that's not too bad. Shut your mouth. Morosa scolded angrily. Don't you think about how much effort I've put into teaching you? The time law alone, how many times have I explained it to you? It must have been over 10,000 times, right? You fool. Mu Qingyang quietly listened. He was very grateful to Lord Luosa in his heart. After all, his master had not given him guidance for over 30 epochs, but Lord Luosa had patiently guided him time and again. Only recently did he learn that Lord Luosa was also a powerful eternal true god, even stronger than Commander Mo Li Xiao and Shui Yun, a protector of his master. That such a strong person would provide him with long-term careful guidance, Mu Qingyang was very touched. Usually, a mentor would not be so dedicated. In his heart, Mu Qingyang had already begun to regard Morosa as his mentor. Crunch, crunch, an irritated Morosa quickly devoured the roasted meat. Morosa, come in. Luo Feng communicated telepathically and then moved Morosa into the Star Tower. Naturally, Morosa offered no resistance. Inside the Star Tower. Master, did you call for me? Morosa chuckled. In front of Mu Qingyang, I can hit and scold as I wish, but in front of the master, I must be cautious and humble. I want to see just how big a gap there is between me, newly advanced primal chaos realm cultivator, and you, deeply cultivated primal chaos realm cultivator, Luo Feng said. To compare with me. Morosa couldn't help but say, Master, you've only recently made your breakthrough, and your godly body is still far from the limit. Such a big gap, why compare? I know I can't win, I just want to feel the gap, Luo Feng said. Upon reflection, Morosa said, I won't burn any divine power or use any primal chaos realm moves, and I'll just rely on my body to compare with the master. This way, I should be able to exercise about 10% of my strength. If divine power were to be burned, his strength would soar by several times over. And if he were to use secret techniques, there would naturally be an increase. All right. Luo Feng showed no mercy. With an outstretched hand, the blood shadow knife appeared in his palm. Boom! Luo Feng executed an all-out burning of divine power with Duan Mie, utilizing the skills of the primal chaos laws that he was still capable of learning. It was just that the more advanced techniques were beyond his ability to master. Come on, come at me, Morosa confidently beckoned. In an instant, Luo Feng swung out a primal chaos blade light, which even severed the operation of the primal chaos laws. Within the area covered by the blade technique, the primal chaos laws were already cleaved apart, opening up a deep, dark rift that cut through several layers of space. This strike was also the first blade of the world-breaking 9 blades within the primal chaos realm, the primal chaos blade. This blade, based on the primal chaos laws and containing some mysteries of the destruction origin, was still rather elementary. Luo Feng had managed to master it after spending just a little time on it. But the second and third blades of the sequence were far beyond Luo Feng's current accumulations in the field of destruction, making them much harder to practice. Phut! Morosa reached out with his plump hand and forcefully resisted Luo Feng's strike. His palm skin slightly indented, effortlessly dissipating the power of the blade. Master, that's quite powerful. If it were twice as strong, it might injure me, Morosa shouted. That shouldn't be the case, Luo Feng said, puzzled as he sheathed his knife. Why have you stopped, Master? Morosa asked in confusion. Luo Feng shook his head. I haven't broken through for long, that strike was the maximum strength I could muster. Morosa blinked. This episode is end here.